Before setting out to search for a relic, researchers must first visit archives and plunge deep into a sea of documents. The Archive of the Superintendents for the Archaeological Heritage of Tuscany was established in 1798. All documents regarding archaeological happenings in Tuscany from the end of the 19th century until the present day are stored here. These documents are unique and irreplaceable. The archive is therefore an extraordinary mine of information concerning marine and dry land archaeology in Tuscany. Here, one can find testimonies relating to antique finds, together with far more recent information provided by recreational divers. We're fortunate in that our archives contain records of nearly the entire history of underwater research in Tuscany, from its origins in the 1960s, or even earlier, until the present day. Aqualungs first came into use around 1960, and in fact the first testimonies of archaeological discoveries made by divers were recorded around this time. We have testimonies not only from scuba divers, but also from fishermen, who over the years have brought antique artifacts caught in their nets to the surface. If a particularly high quantity of artifacts is discovered in a certain area, we can then legitimately assume that a shipwreck lies below. The Thesaurus project researchers have created a map detailing all the sites of archaeological interest in the Tuscan archipelago. In a sense, we already knew what has emerged from studying the archives, that the vast majority of these relics are located along the coastline, usually no more than 50 meters underwater. This isn't only because 50 meters is the average depth that scuba divers have descended to until now, but also because it was more common for ships to founder the closer they were to the coast. It was dangerous to navigate the coastline, because a choppy sea could prevent ships from maneuvering, and they would either end up crashing against the cliffs or being beached if the littoral zone was sandy. The Thesaurus project researchers will also investigate the photographic archives of the Superintendents for the Archaeological Heritage of Tuscany. Any images taken over the last 130 years of shipwrecks and excavations are stored here. To provide some idea of the figures, we have roughly 67,000 black and white negatives. Some of these are glass plate, others celluloid. Given that each celluloid film contains about 12 frames, the total figure is very high. The Thesaurus project aims to create an exhaustive database of Tuscany's submerged cultural patrimony. This database won't only contain paper sources, but also images of the finds. We can use the photographic sources that have already been created and added to the Superintendent's archives. The others we will have to produce ourselves. By creating a photographic campaign based around the relics that interest us, we're adding another string to the Thesaurus project's bow. Researching the archives of the Superintendents for Archaeological Heritage has proven to be a fundamental point of departure for a study of other less researched archives, some of which may contain salient new information. Information concerning the relics of interest to us in the Tuscan archipelago might well be found in overseas archives, or in other archives that remain untapped as far as this type of research is concerned. The researchers are beginning to investigate some very promising leads deriving from insurance company archives. Of course, this is an area that we've recently started to explore. From the Middle Ages onwards, insurance companies have kept very detailed accounts of shipwrecks, mainly because the cargo would in most cases become property of the insurance company when the ship foundered. It was therefore in their best interests to find out the exact location of the shipwreck. Previously unknown stories of ships foundering are beginning to emerge from these archives. The documents tell of shipwrecks that to this day have not been found. This is a very frequent scenario. Here's an example. A letter from Sergeant Major Benedetto Guerini to the Grand Duke, dated 27th January 1701, tells us of how this morning we heard that a tartane containing a load of French porcelain was lost near the San Vincenzo estuary. There are 9 survivors. This is a perfect example of how we can have perfect, reliable evidence of a foundering, without ever having found the wreckage. Tuscany can boast of holding a record in terms of underwater archaeology. In no other Italian region have so many excavations taken place, nor have a similar number of relics been documented. Here, much credit is due to Francesco Nicosia, who was superintendent during the 1980s and who died in 2009. Despite having no diving experience, Francesco Nicosia was known to strap on an air canister and plunge into the sea himself. He was also incredibly persistent in asking the ministry for funding, and for this we are extremely grateful. Archives are the collective memory of the world. Without them, history would merely be a blurry photo, lacking in detail. The Thesaurus project intends to make the most of these archives and the data they contain. Each discovery, even if it's an isolated case, is another brushstroke in the great fresco that is the history of navigation.